So with me is the Labour member of the European Parliament and leader of the European Parliamentary Labour Party, Richard Corbett. Should say the pitch where we are is actually right by the stand of the Labour MEPs, and on it, it has the words "Remain in the European Union." And I'm not giving away any secrets that the organisers of the conference were very concerned that they didn't want "Remain in the European Union" above my shoulder when we're broadcasting from here. And Richard Corbett, that really shows the tensions in the party, doesn't it?
Well, I think many members will be very happy to see those words, remain and reform, as it says in the European Union.
And how do you see today's debate? I mean, it is being presented as a trial of strength, basically, against the Corbyn leadership.
Well, no, it's a trial of strength against those who are perhaps more cautious about our position on Brexit. Remember, there is a degree of unity. Labour wants a new referendum on any Brexit outcome, because Brexit is so different from what was promised 3.5 years ago by Boris Johnson and the Leave campaign. Against any no-deal scenario or a Johnson-type May deal, we would campaign to remain. The only open question is if Labour comes to power, gets a different, less damaging deal, should we say already now we will nonetheless campaign to remain, or should we leave that open until we've got that deal? Most people think it's better to have clarity, that we should say from now onwards we're going to campaign to remain, because any deal is not going to be as good as what we've got now. Others say no, let's leave it until that moment.
But I mean, you're an elected politician, you go out there, you try and get votes, and the point that people around the leadership are saying is that if we say, come what may, in the end we're going to campaign for Remain, we are thumbing our nose at a lot of Labour voters who voted to leave.
Well, we had a dummy run in the European Parliament elections in May of trying to have an ambiguous position. Yeah. What happened? We shed bucket loads of votes to the Greens and to the Liberal Democrats, not to any Brexit supporting party, or not nearly as much. That's where we lost our voters, because, by the way, even in Leave voting constituencies, most Labour voters voted Remain. Probably even more of them would now when they see what a mess Brexit is and what a damaging Tory project Brexit actually is.
So, I mean, you just think that it's plain wrong when people around the leader say that?
I think the position of ambiguity doesn't help us on the doorstep. It takes 10 minutes to explain it, and even then people don't really like it. People prefer an honest answer. We think we're better off in the European Union.
But there is this very basic problem, isn't there? I mean, there's your slogan for the many, not the few. The many, the majority, voted to leave, and you're really opening up the possibility of not giving them that.
Well, as David Davis, of all people, said, if a democracy cannot change its mind, it ceases to be a democracy. And given that referendum 3.5 years ago was won on the basis of promises that are turning out not to be true at all. Remember, they said it would be easy. It's rather complicated. They said it would save lots of money that would all go into the NHS. It's costing a fortune. They said it would be good for the economy and jobs. The opposite is true. So it's right that it goes back to the people to be able to say, do you want to go ahead nonetheless, free to choose, or not free to choose? The public decides.
OK, supposing you get what you want, and we have a second referendum, and Labour is saying, don't accept the deal that's been negotiated, accept, vote to Remain. And the Conservatives presumably are saying, we've been betrayed by everybody, we should get out of Europe. Who do you think would win that?
I think Remain would win. It would be, actually, you say a second referendum, it would be the first referendum on the actual deal, where you can see black on white what Brexit entails.
And the third referendum on Britain's relationship with Europe.
Who would, once you've settled it with a second referendum, how many politicians would go out and say, let's go through this whole process again? I think people would be fed up with it, and it would be settled, whatever the outcome is.
And what do you think of the prospects are for today's votes, where we've got, as it were, your motion you're supporting and the other motion, the two-team motion you're supporting?
Well, we will see when we vote. I think there's growing support for the motion that wants a clear position in favour of Remain.
Now, Beth Rigby, our political editor, is here. We've got more news on the balance of power, if you like, in this great Brexit debate. What can you tell us?
Adam, it's all happening right now, but the position, the carefully calibrated position that the NEC was trying to put forward on Jeremy Corbyn's preferred position of staying neutral on how Labour would campaign in a referendum is beginning to unravel. So that stitch-up agreed, not even behind closed doors, but via email, is beginning to unravel.
How so?
And the reason it's unravelling is a couple of things. That Unison, the biggest union, I understand, has now decided to vote against the NEC motion and for Composite 13.
The tweeting motion.
This one's here, and that one, as I repeat, will say that Labour will campaign energetically for a public vote and to stay in the EU in that referendum. But also, in the past 20 minutes, something else quite explosive has happened, and that is that John Landsman, the head of Momentum, has made public his displeasure over how the NEC Brexit motion was put together. As I said, it was done over emails. NEC meetings cancelled this morning. It was also cancelled yesterday. And he has tweeted his displeasure about how this came about. And he has signalled to Momentum members on the floor that they must vote with their conscience. So he's effectively given Momentum members a free vote on the issue of all these motions. And the reason that matters is because this morning Momentum, the coordinators, had agreed that they would support Jeremy Corbyn's motion, the NEC motion, and they would oppose the composite motion back in Remain. So, where are we? I mean, the way we are now is it's in play. This is game on for the Remainers, and it could be that actually, despite what's happened today, that motion gets passed.
But just to be clear, I mean, does Landsman control Momentum?
No, Landsman doesn't control Momentum, but what you've got to remember is if those delegates are coming, like many delegates here who are overwhelmingly pro-Remain, that's where the membership of the party is, and they're already feeling quite torn about how to do this, their loyalty to Jeremy Corbyn versus what they feel in their hearts and their conscience. If Landsman is then saying to them, actually, this is a free vote, do what you want, I don't like the stitch-up, vote with your conscience, does that tip a load of them into the column of back in the pro-Remain position? That I don't know, but what was attempted to be a way of controlling and shutting down this debate, the Pandora's box is now well and truly open. And for John Landsman to be publicly going against Jeremy Corbyn in this way gives you a sense of just how unhappy the leadership of the party and those around him are over this Brexit position.
Well, of course, it's the second split because he was not back on getting rid of the deputy leader. I mean, Richard Corbett, this is all a bit hypothetical at the moment. It's about Labour's position. Of course, we've got a Boris Johnson government at the moment. We've also got just over 40 days until we're due to leave. How do you see that political and parliamentary battle going? I mean, we could still leave without a deal on Halloween, couldn't we?
Well, Parliament has legislated to say that that he cannot leave without a deal. He must request an extension. Now, would the EU give an extension? I think so. The European Parliament voted last week to say even just to avoid no deal, it's warranted to give an extension. And from the EU 27's point of view, the difficult extension was the last one, which caused all kinds of legal problems with the number of seats in the European Parliament and so on. Now, any further extension is just keeping the status quo for a few more months. They would accept that rather than see the chaos of a no deal.
And if Boris Johnson brings back a deal, is that going to get through?
I doubt it, because the only sort of changes he's been talking about are ones that would not be acceptable to the House of Commons.
Well, I'm just seeing Jeremy Corbyn over there behind you doing a walk around the stalls. And of course, the other news today is we are going to hear when the Supreme Court is going to make its announcement. We're not expecting it today. Lots more to come from the Labour Party conference on Sky News. Stay with us.